Between Order and Chaos, How I Teach Jiu Jitsu, a workshop I gave in 2021 at the BJJ Globetrotters summer camp in Heidelberg. I have studied and worked for many years as a teacher in physical education in schools and also have my gym of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu since about 10 years. And in my lifetime, I think I have more than about 20 years of experience in teaching martial arts and about 15 years in teaching Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. In this workshop, I want to share with you the things that I learned, my experiences in training and teaching Jiu Jitsu over the years. I believe the concepts and principles that I share and techniques I share in this video are also applicable to other fields of teaching and learning in general. So I really hope you enjoy this workshop. At the same time, I want to give a shout out to the website teachingbjj.com. So if you're more interested in the topic of how to teach Jiu-Jitsu and training methods, I highly recommend to check out www.teachingbjj.com. You can also check the link in the description down below. So have a lot of fun with this workshop, and I highly encourage questions, which you can leave in the comments. Please share my video. If there's any questions, please ask, and I will be more than happy to take them into account and reply. Thanks a lot, and enjoy. I call this how I teach. So why? Because it's not based on science or anything. Well, I do read scientific stuff and all those things that I try to always improve what I know and base it on some hard facts, let's say. But I don't say this is how you should teach. This is just how I teach, and I think I'm in a way on a good path, because like everything Francesco says, we seem to agree without having had contact before about this. Yeah? So that's a good sign. If people agree on some things, it's good signs, and things you don't agree on, that's interesting. There is room for improvement. And I call it between chaos and order, how to manage between those. What do I mean with this? I'm going to first start what I mean with that, and then I'm going to explain, give examples of different fields where you can teach in, and then see how you can apply it to Jiu-Jitsu. So the biggest thing I'm going to try to do here is just open your mind to what is out there a bit, okay? So order and chaos. Imagine you have to teach a room, okay? Or have to, not teach, but have to make a group learn. What is better, total chaos or total order? I know it's in between, but let's just see what both extremes actually represent. So vote. Who would be saying, I have to teach a room of kids, we go for total chaos? Who would do that? Okay, good. Who would say total order? And you have to have an opinion here. You cannot just be without opinion. So who would say total order? Okay, and total chaos?
Okay, between.
Huh? Yeah,
that's in between.
Exactly, it's in between. But then we have to decide. We have to first check what both extremes represent, and then we can decide. Of course, it's in between. Everything is always gray. Yeah. But if I would have to choose between one of the two, right? Then I would say, if for just learning itself, not for self-preservation, but for learning itself, I would say total chaos. If you put kids in a room and let them play by themselves, right? They will be creative, they will develop games, they will get like a leader in the group, and order will arise from chaos automatically. And you always have that happening naturally by itself. They will have mini rules, mini games. They start to play doctor, they start to fight without rules, and learning from that will automatically come. So chaos is very creative. It's play. I say chaos. I see it as a synonymous for playfulness and to open and be creative. Then again, order. What does it? So if you put a room full of kids and you put too many rules, then you kill all creativity, you create all fun, and learning starts to stop. So of course, then the question is, how far do you go in between both of those? What is the downside of chaos? Well, if you put 100 monkeys in a room and you just let them do whatever, some monkeys will break or die. That's why we cannot do that all the way. And as a teacher, you get a head like that. So you cannot really do that. And then I have to ask actually, is our role as a teacher, should it be like primary or secondary to the needs of the group? Because when I was teaching in school, it's much more fun if everybody's just sitting on the chair and looks to the blackboard, doesn't say a word, and does whatever you say. And for many years I used to do that. But the problem is you always have a constant struggle with your group of for control. So you need to have moments like that. If everything is always chaos, you cannot teach. But if you go there all the way all the time, then people will rebel against too much order. And to be honest, from my experience in my gym itself, I had this happen when I was about 10 years ago. I had like a bunch of people who want to compete, some good, some less good, mostly purple belts. And what they say after a while, you always teach the same thing. We don't want to do that anymore. We just want to drill in your class, your class along the corner. We don't want to do what you teach. And my instinct was, like my ego said, no, this is my room, and I'm going to do whatever you have to do what I say. And eventually, what ended? They left. They went to their own things. Now I think they would have left in any case, and none of them still train at this point. So there's also something to be said about my approach as well. But what I learned from it is you should not give total free reign, but at this point, when people in my room, when they are, it doesn't really matter about the belt to be honest, but let's say end blue, beginning purple, whatever, you don't say, Wim, come in my class, and they say, Wim, I want to do my own thing today. Fine, I can understand if you follow my class for 3, 4, 5 years, 2 years, depending on the problem, on the person, that after a while you're really tired of hearing me saying the same things over and over and over again. There is to be a room for creativity.
Yeah, it's also at a certain point you start to develop your own game.
Of course.
Not interesting. Like I like to watch Charles teach tornado sweeps, but no, like I don't really need it. You know, it's okay to know it, and of course I need to know something about it, but I don't have to go in depth.
No, it just like I don't think that it's probably like something like the 80-20 rule. That's what I say. But 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, you know, right? But even the Pareto, the one who developed the principle, says it's not exactly 80-20. It's sometimes 70-30, 60-40. It really depends. So it's like a gray area. But the point is, what I believe, for what is most important in a class actually. Let's think about that first. What is the most important thing in your training room? The one thing that trumps all. Yes?
To have fun.
No. But close second.
To have mats.
Sorry?
To have mats.
No, like it goes beyond jiu-jitsu. This is a general thing. Yes.
Safety.
Yes, I believe 100% safety. 100%. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not because the more safety there is, the less fun it is, as we all experienced the last year. Because the last year was a struggle the whole pandemic, the struggle between safety and fun, order and chaos. And where do you put it? Somewhere in between. But now you decide where it is. But just from a commercial perspective, if your students start to break their legs every class, you're gonna lose students. That's just the way it is. And if people don't feel safe, they will also not start. They will also like fall out. And instead of the few hotheads who are like tough, that's the way we learned actually jiu-jitsu. Like in the beginning, just go into the room and learn technique here and there, and have like a very let's say, like a puzzle. You have a piece here and a piece there, and you put it together in some way or another, and a lot of injuries happen. Like all of my injuries that I had plenty over the years, and all of them happened either because I refused to tap in a competition, in training also, or just because we were stupid in training wrong. Literally all of them. And every once in a while, if like an accidental chronic sudden injury happened, and that's bad, but most of the injuries I have are like chronic, like a bad back from bad posture, and so I have to take that into account. Now where was I before? Okay, so order and so safety and chaos. So, but in the class then, look, you have to keep it playful and give people their own responsibilities and let them have fun with what they're doing and have their own creative input. Because as a teacher, I also feel, and this is inevitable, you always get like tunnel vision. I do. Like I like close passing, close tight games, and it's very hard to step away from that. Sometimes I really force myself to go away from that. And the way to do it is like I often come in my class, any questions? Usually there are no questions. But every once in a while, one person might ask that question, and I have zero problems dedicating my whole class to that one single question. I think it's more useful to solve one person's problem, then then just people show up and they're just gonna follow whatever is like on the menu of the day, right? It's more important to fix one thing, because if one person has a certain problem, then probably more of the people in the group are gonna have that problem. Yeah. So now about the Pareto principle, where do you put it? Well, I believe, let's put it in 80-20 then. See, I believe like beginners, 80% order, 20% chaos. Because if you put two beginners together in that's actually the most dangerous thing there is. I do have a beginner class in my gym, 3 actually. I call it fundamentals, not even beginners, because I believe it should be open for everybody. But to be honest, it's the most dangerous class there is. Imagine you're a 30, 40-year-old, or even a 20-year-old who never did a front roll in his life. who never did a front roll in his life, who never did a squat, doesn't, for example, like guillotine, you push against it, that's bad for the spine, you're gonna have injuries. And at the same time, if you put two beginners together, they have less good feedback. So I'm a bit opposed to beginner classes, but the reason I put it in my gym still, and I probably will change it after this camp, after the conversations I had, my idea was mostly, right now it's just for marketing. Because people, when I send a letter, and it's a beginner class, it's because the advanced, I'm a bit afraid of it. You need to convince them a little bit. But if I go to one, I'll just say, come to one beginner class and check how it is, and then we can ease them into it. So that would be the argument for how to keep, for keeping it. But I believe, like, I'm going a bit ahead of myself, but there's like the pyramid of learning. Have you heard about it? It's like 10% we learn from what we see, 20% from what we hear, and so on and so on and so on. And the point is that you learn the most from teaching yourself. Okay, and that's what I feel. Whenever I want to learn a new position for myself, so for example, I watch most of the classes here, and what I like the most about a class is just what is the beginning position, and where do they end up. And the beginning part, if you show it to me or not, I will have to discover it for myself. Because often when I see someone do something straight away, and these are step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 to do, then I will tend to not look beyond that. If I just put myself beginning position, so for example, if I saw Sven's class from the shackle guard, cool, interesting. He does it, he's a good teacher, good competitor, I know it will work, so now it's worth for me to pursue a rabbit hole, and regardless, I don't really care where he ended up, because, and then I like to do it, and in a few months we will see, did I come up with the same things, and then we both know if it was the correct pathway to pursue. And then I think, there's of course different learning types, but I know for myself what I find is fun, how I learn, and if it works for me, then to some extent it should at least work for my students as well. And what I learned a lot about, what I really like is when Christian gives create something, how he makes his camps. One quote that I really, really like is this. He says, these camps are my vacation, he says. And I just do it for fun, and you guys are just basically trusting my vacation. You're welcome along for the ride. And if I don't like the camp, nobody's probably gonna like it. Same for me, like if I teach my class, I'm sure I teach a class that I like for myself. And you will get the people that you deserve and that you like. You know, and if they don't like your clothes, they can go somewhere else. But then again, still be open for different input.
So I agree that doing it for marketing purposes is maybe not the best thing, but I teach a fundamentals class at our gym, and people are really grateful that this class is there, because I teach less technique, less details, more playing around, and more explaining. In the normal classes, there's when Sven teaches, there's much technique and much explaining here, there, and you can do this and that, and it's too much to people often. They're happy to have like a class that is more basic and where they can try out things. And
I don't think we should see playfulness and the details as basically fundamental and to be more open, because exactly like in my class when I teach advanced people, I tended to go very deep into it as well. But to be honest, my learning, the last month I did open guard passing, and in the past would be drill, but it's too static. And what I like to do right now is just go into the position, have a little bit guidelines,
and play around it. See, I will go more deep in that topic as well. So, but for safety, I would say beginners 20% order, no 80% order, 20% chaos, whatever that means to you, right? And then for advanced, leave more room for playfulness. It would be the opposite: 80% chaos, 20% order. So what would be chaos and order? For example, when I teach my open guard class, I said like I start someone in the beginning, controlling both legs, and then I put some criteria. I say, okay, the guy on top will win once he gets past your guard, or once he turns to his knees, and the guy on bottom will win once he puts his feet inside. Okay, good, we go. And then a black belt asks, or a brown belt in my game, can also sweep. Well, that was not the point, but if you feel like on that moment you feel like you have to do the sweep, that's fine. Different is of course if it's this like just pairs. I don't care when they go out of my rules a little bit. Just guidelines always. But if it's like a group exercise, for example, I put 30 minutes on the timer, and if you succeed, switch. That's what I do a lot, for example, lately. Put 1 hour or 30 minutes, very long rounds on the timer, so people have a chance to explore. And then I say, okay, go. Top guy loses or wins or completes the objective, goes to bottom, we switch function. After this wins or succeeds, then we switch partners. And then I switch all the time. Now, what I found with doing this, look, if I personally roll with a beginner you have the open rounds or position rolling, and I put 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes on the timer. Then I want to get the most out of those 6-minute rolls for myself. See? So when I have a beginner or anyone asking me a question between my 6-minute rolls, I tend to have the feeling, hey man, I don't want to explain now, I want to get over with my roll. But if I put 1 hour on the timer, I have no problem with answering questions during that roll and solving that. If it's true for me, it might probably be true for at least some other people as well. And I did notice in my gym, once I started putting longer rounds, that people start to do more explanation, more giving each other feedback, and it became more like an open classroom. Now, why do we roll 6-minute rounds? Why do we do this? Because at some point, IBJJF said that that's the correct, or not even IBJJF, like the tournaments in general said, you have to have rounds. Now, if you really think about, if you prepare for a tournament, obviously we need to train in those rounds. But what I read, this is the literature, I cannot quote exactly, but I read about this, that if you do, for example, preparation for technique, you should have not really put time constraints on that. Because the ideal form that you need to build it over time and feel and work it out. But if you go closer to a competition preparation, then start put, for example, put 6 minutes, 4 minutes, and like the week before preparation, put like 1 minute rounds. Right? Would you agree on this?
I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and this is something I still have to. We call it periodization. See? They say if you prepare. This is something I really still have to implement in my gym as well. But they say if you prepare for like a specific combination, then longer, shorter interval training, 1 minute rest. For example, you catch your guard, get out as fast as possible. Because in competition, we don't really have the luxury of slowly getting out, and because you're only behind on time. Also depends, of course, on what you prepare for. Because I always prepare competition a bit with self-defense. What are the two things? Look, in self-defense, you have two extremes. For one hand, it's survival. See? Avoid the fight. Because most of the times, let's be honest, if you just don't want to fight, will not be a fight. And if you hug the guy and hey, don't want to fight, it's calm down. The guy will calm down, or someone come in between and will break you up. That is all situations where you follow the rules of don't do stupid things with stupid people at stupid times, at stupid moments. Right? Usually. Got it? Yeah? But if occasionally you can be on a spot where where you're alone in a park, for example, and 10 people jump you or one person jumps you, and then you have to get out because you never know what else is out there, right? And so even like preparing for short rounds prepares you for that. See, it's more chaos. The more you put time on it, the more chaos there is, and the more you put open, the more time you have to explore, and the more time you have to develop order in that. Are there any questions so far? No questions so far. Okay, good. So I have to think, where was I? Okay, so order and chaos. Now, examples that I'm going to use. So I'm a physical education teacher by education. I stopped teaching in schools about 10 years ago, right now. That's when I went fully in Jiu Jitsu. Reasons I leave in between, but what I learned, for example, I love teaching swimming classes, and for me there's a big comparison between the both. So for example, when I teach, you have to think about it, okay? When you teach a kid swimming, the kid goes to the swimming pool for the very first time, never, let's put it extreme, never touched water before. How will that kid react?
Scared.
Sorry?
Scared.
That's one pathway, scared and anxious can be, or curious. Yeah, that's probably the best one. Yeah, and the other one, what can also happen?
Just mindlessly jump in.
Usually I get this. No, I don't want to do the water. That's one. Water, and I want to go everywhere. So how do you react with that? Well, if the kid is, so let's think. If the kid is like, I want to play. He's not ready to be, he or she is not ready to be taught. So what do you do with that kid? You're going to say, you cannot do that. What are you going to say to the kid? What will you do? Yeah?
Maybe there are kids' pools where they don't, like, where it's safe, they can just play around, so they lose a bit of energy.
At least let them go full monkey for like 10-15 minutes. And if it's like a 3-year-old kid, or if, for example, my daughter is 4 years old, I have a lot of experience in teaching swimming classes. I don't manage to teach her swimming because she's not attentive. Okay, good. Then, for example, if I go 1 hour to the swimming pool, it will be 15 minutes of monkeying around, and it will be 10 minutes of teaching. And that is in age, but probably, okay, we say some people have ADHD, or all people are different. So for some people, you don't have to adapt that, and it will be more chaos, and that is fine as long as there is learning. It doesn't really need to be that strict. So you let the kid go around, okay, good. And then the anxious kid, what will you do with the anxious kid? Then you also play games, but slowly, and maybe put some little bit of water in the face, okay? So, and slowly ease into the swimming. And then the first exercise I always used to do in the past, when I was in the same Jiu Jitsu, in a private class, the kids would say, okay, let's just sit in the water and stand here for 1 minute. No, stand here for 1 minute. Can you just be attentive for, okay, put 1 minute, maybe it's 30 seconds. And I had this conversation I have in my Jiu-Jitsu gym, I have 2 pianists. Okay, and they do the exact same thing. Kid enters, piano. And just don't destroy the piano, but just mash the buttons for a while. I'm saying kids, but adults are exactly the same, only we can control those urges a little bit better, but in the end, we have the same urges, maybe we just don't act upon them. But we should take them into account, so that the kids pass the piano a little bit. Kids usually don't go to the piano class with being scared. It's not like water, but let them do that. And then okay, and then you start playing with that, okay, and you, little by little, you go into music. So also, this is off like different topic, but the piano teacher says in the past I would replicate exact songs, have to be perfect, the exact same song, and every like perfect one song, and then go to the next. He says now you just play whatever song what comes up for the day to keep it more playful, and then as they play, maybe look more on that. In the beginning at least, and then when they get more perfect, then they can start perfecting individual songs. The same thing, well, because I'm, like I said, by nature I'm also a control freak a little bit. That's why I get into Jiu-Jitsu maybe. I want to control things in the chaos of a fight. But what I notice, if I used to be like, okay, my 2 guys are rolling, no. And in the end, they stop acting at all. Because nobody wants to be put on the spot and feel it's always wrong.
Public humiliation.
Yeah.
Nothing you want.
Then exactly, that is one thing. So now I also tend to let things a bit more free. What I noticed for myself in the past, that I'm a good teacher, if it's at least I'm a better teacher if I go for a group. And the smaller the group gets, the bigger of an asshole I become, because you see everything, and it's don't you have this feeling? And it's annoying for myself, but sometimes just have to say, let go. To go into the research about this, and again, I cannot really quote my source, but ever heard of the Super Mario effect? Ever heard this? Yeah?
No.
No? I will tell what it is. So, well, it's there's a scientific term for it as well, but I call it the Super Mario effect. It's like this: when you play a video game, it's like you play, but die, try again, play, die, try again, play, die, try again. So whenever they put people to do a mission, and every time the only thing they say is fail, try again, fail, try again. That's one approach, and the other one is you give people 1,000 points, and every time they die, you say fail, lose 10 points, try again. Which of the both groups learn best? And if you already know, then please don't spoil. So let's think, which group learns the best? Yeah?
I think the first one, because they don't recognize that they lost something or they don't losing something, because in the second one they're losing points.
Yeah, but then, so you're right, the first group where I say fail, try again, improve the better. Yeah, because I didn't lose anything, exactly. But why?
Afraid of failing.
Yeah. Sorry?
They are not afraid of failing.
Yes. And this is, man, this is now we go really into the whole thing. They're not afraid of failing, right? So why is it important not to be afraid of failing? Why is it important not to be afraid of failing, or why is it important not to make your students afraid of failing?
Because you go out of your comfort zone and then you can improve, but it's also possible that you can fail. If you are afraid of failing, you will never go out of the comfort zone and you can never improve.
Yes, man?
I also would say failing is a big part of learning.
Yeah, everybody says that, and I agree on that, but why is that?
Most things are just very hard and you fail automatically.
Yeah, but okay. So the reason why this effect is there, I say, is because the more things, if you're not afraid of failing, you try, you get unlimited more reps. And if you get more reps, then you have more chance of learning. If you're afraid to fail, you will overanalyze, think too much. And if you overanalyze and think too much, you lose intuition, and then you don't get into it. By the way, a good book, now I think about it, is the book called Intuition. I forgot the writer, but you really should check it.
It's called like this?
Sorry?
The book is called
Intuition. I read it in Dutch, so it's Intuitie, but
is it available in English?
yeah, for sure. It's a translation. Which is one of the last times I read translated books. I always like to read in original language if I understand, but I got it for a birthday. But in any case, they give there the example of this is beyond this, but it was about a simulation of warfare between in the States, and the States had one army, and so they represented the ordered world where everything goes top down. You have to report to your general, and he decides everything. And the only they gave was like of a rogue dictatorship nation. Like rogue guerrilla warfare, where in the beginning of the day they just say, the general says, this is our general tactic. Now individual groups do whatever you like, and you have to read. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I don't even know it's fully relevant to this. But I said like the overanalyzation, although you probably get better solutions in the long run, on the moment itself, it freezes all the thoughts, and you just lose. You don't have time to analyze before the situation changed. And then the lesser technological advanced group who acted with let the individuals decide things for themselves and act upon those, just following the general guideline that tended to perform better. So what is this for you actually like? So the top-down approach with the super organized army, that is 80% order, 20% chaos. And they are lost in the long run to the not disorganized, but the 80% chaos, 20% order, they just follow general guidelines. So if it's something that's true in one field, then it's usually the principle holds true for other fields as well. Yeah? So now we go back to teaching. So another thing, so like in swimming, when a child enters the swimming pool for the first time, that child is going to be afraid or super excited, or sometimes neutral, and that's easier to work with. In general, I find it easier to temper excitement as it is to take away fear. But it's also mostly because it's more fun to work with someone energetic than it is to put energy into it. You know what I mean? Because if someone is scared, it might take a lot of time before the person gets into it. While excitement and being super excited, it tends to go away a bit when you get tired as well. You understand what I'm saying? So if you have people who are super excited, they just act, they will calm down themselves. While they're scared, probably the same thing happens, but it can take a longer time. So, for example, how do you do this? So, if it's true for kids when they enter a swimming pool, or any person who never touched water before, it's true for martial art class as well. Striking arts, I would say, probably there's more fear than there is in the Jiu Jitsu class, but this might just be me thinking out loud. But okay, so in a boxing class, for example, when I run my first time a boxing class, so how do you take away fear in a boxing class? Does anyone here teach striking? Doesn't matter. We can still put it. It's a good way to see it. The very first class I always teach in boxing is put your both, so each one wear gloves. Put both of you your hands on your back, and one of them is gonna punch. So you can do jab, cross, hook, no kicks, like any punch you like, and you have to take every punch on the forehead. Not super hard. So take every punch on the forehead. This is like the equivalent of putting some water in the face. Some people, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, no. Well, if you don't like this, then maybe boxing is not for you. That's fair. But let's say if it's only the fear of getting punched and you would otherwise like it, then let's try to go through this. See, so some people will not like it, and that's fine. That's fair. But so what happens with this? A person who's afraid of getting punched, how does he act when you go near him? And they expose the chin, right? Okay, good. And a person who's afraid of the punch, everybody wants to slip a punch. Right? If I want to slip a punch and I'm afraid, I'm going to go wide. And if you give me a jab, see, and I go wide, by the time I'm back in the center of the counter, boom, the second one comes. But so the idea of slipping is to be very close to, like, even good boxers have broken ears because they tend to slip the punch on the ear, or so I was told. There is some who don't, some who don't. But so you cannot be afraid if you go into the class. If you're afraid to take risks, and if you cannot take risks or are afraid for failure, you will do less reps. You will be very dogmatic and tight in your game. You will not learn anything. Okay, so you do this. And then the second thing I said, okay, now let's take every punch. And the second thing is let's like graze the punch, and then they can slip. Okay, and then afterwards, so after this, then we're gonna start using our hands. So if you go to a boxing class, you are going to get punched in the face. We can discuss how hard that should be. I would say probably not too hard, more like play games. After, so you're gonna get punched. So better teach people how to get hit. So what is the worst way to block a punch? Is here. And the second worst way is here. But this is already like an unlimited improvement over getting punched. You can take like a few here. It's probably not good for your brain. Just as is in football, I guess like hitting the ball with your head is also not good for your brain, but they still do it.
I know a striking coach, a very good striking coach, and he will deliberately do
that. That is tricks. That is tricks. And then he can also say, you do that, yes, with gloves. And even and you can take a fist on your forehead. You can do that.
And it's probably worse for the fist than
it's worse for the fist, but still also worse bad for you. And it's in a fight. Like if it's 1% bad for me and you break your wrist, over time it will still accumulate damage. So it's not something we want to do, but it's always a risk with martial arts. It's always like a bit of injury. And to be honest, we don't really know very much. I don't think it's too well studied yet. What are the sorry?
CTE.
Yeah, because it's impossible to have big studies about this. You can have, okay, we see Muhammad Ali, brain damage, okay, good, with the Parkinson, maybe there's a genetic factor as well, but usually studies happen, it's always anecdotal.
Yeah, I think the NFL has done some long-term studies now.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah, some data available, but it's not.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it's probably not. It's not compared, for example, to the effects of a medicine.
Yeah.
Because there is just less people doing the damage on their head, and it's also not ethical to bunch people on the head and see what is the effect. So yeah. So there
That's your opinion.
Yeah.
Huh? That's your opinion.
Yeah. Okay. My opinion. Yeah. So then the other approach. This is to get people away of the fear. That's the one extreme. And what is the other extreme? People who just want to go in are not afraid at all, just want to bash people. How do you stop those in boxing?
Punch them.
Sorry?
Punch them.
No. So what I like to do in my striking class is, usually every class I do this, is to put a class, no gloves at all, no shin pads, nothing, just no protection at all, spar. And then the rule is, the guideline of this is, don't go hard. And if it's like really a hothead, I will never put them with someone who is not a hothead. You put two hotheads together. And of course, man, if it's like completely psychos, I would never do that because if some people are just
Different.
crazy, let's say. But I find that people, okay, now they don't hit hard. Good, and now it works. And then the moment you start sparring, you say, okay, let's now use the same intensity as our no glove punches. Now with kicks and punches, with the protection. And you say the same intensity, and they will automatically go a little bit harder. And the point is to bring to a level that is acceptable. Yeah, I would imagine. Huh? Yeah, and even if it's super interesting because it goes off topic a bit. But what happened in the last fight with Connor with the shin breaking? Well, if it happens once, it's an anecdote. If it happens twice, then it means there is something there, and we haven't seen it happen in MMA because probably there's something really bad the way people block or how they position your chins. I don't know what it is. But whenever I used to fight MMA in the past, and every single kick they got checked, I regretted it for weeks to months. Really. So I was always very wary about kicking. Then there's people, the hardest people to fight in the ring were those who had who went berserk, who had zero care for their own limbs and their own bodies. One of my last fights I did was a guy, with like a knife cut in the face. He had been shot, and well, what do we do because we know which person it is, but something very bad happened in his family the month before. So just to say, the guy goes into a mindset in the ring with 0 to lose, and even if you win that fight, you might get very skated in that fight. So that is different, and that's why.
How did it end?
I won, but
you paid.
No, actually I went fine. I was fine, but it could have ended worse, let's say. And just to say, I went to that fight with a lot of fear. And that's also the reason why I'm competition, because we're afraid, we tend to narrow our game. And you should do the opposite in the class because it's about teaching you. We should open the fear. Now, how do you in Jiu Jitsu simulate the same thing between the fear and the word? Like people who come into the class. Okay, so I have to think. It really depends. Like the problem is this: what is good for the individual is not always good for the group, because a group is always a Gauss curve, right? A Gauss curve, like the how do you call this?
Distribution.
Yeah, like distribution, normal distribution. It's called like if you do intelligent coefficient, there is some people who have 60%, some people who want 60%, but most people are around in this area. So probably in a class you have to, at least for a commercial perspective, and to be better for the group, you should be here. Now, if you go for your competitors, then you have to work there, and if you go for complete beginners, then you have to work more here. Now, the reality is, if I would have the ideal perfect room with a limited amount of resources and instructors, I would probably have complete beginners class, intermediate class, complete competitor class. But it's not the reality for most people in this thing. And also, like if you have a complete beginner class, but only 2 people show up, and you have your intermediate class who have 30 people, then if the first time you come into a gym, only 2 people are training here, then people might drop off because it's not more people are doing this. You have to take those factors into account as well, I believe. But where was I going with this? How did I get here? Please remind me.
Your MMA fight?
No.
Swimming?
No, before.
Water in your face?
Nope. I always have this. When I start another thread, I start to go off topic. I was about the Sorry?
Analogy between the.
How do you do that in Jiu Jitsu class? Correct, yes. So some people will be very eager, some will be less eager. Let's say it's a complete beginner. And it's a person who's super afraid. I usually do it's a self-defense class often for initiation. For example, women's self-defense class. I always do this test. You stand up for a second? And I always do this first. First I look them in the eyes. And people do like this. And so you're not comfortable looking at my eyes even, so how are we going to be comfortable touching each other? Okay, and then after this we go here. He flinched, you see? Like slightly, but he flinched. So this is self-defense, but it's not always possible to do, but I do this. This is funny. I do it a little bit. So you ease that up. You go from one extreme to the other, and the middle is probably where we want to be, right? And let's say I put people variable effect, and then for example, if I look at you and you look away, see, then you're probably gonna be a victim for bullies, but you're gonna be less of a victim for people who just fight because of their ego. That's because let's face it, how do most fights happen? It's two extremes. In a school, it's the bully who attacks the prey who looks away. And what happens, two hot heads go together and we see who is the biggest bully of the both of us. So by keeping looking in the eyes, see, we are testing who is the bigger guy here, right? And if you put it completely the other way, by looking away, you put yourself more of a victim. So how do you have to be? So going self-defense, how do you do this? How do you look in someone's eyes? So don't keep looking because you're going to get trouble, and you don't look away because you don't want to be a victim. So what is door number 3 is you nod and then you look away. I saw you, but I'm a friend. Okay, so it's in between. Now, like that, and the same happens with contact. So when we fight, see, we have to go from total chaos. We have to being able to deal with that when we roll and when we fight. But we also have to be teaching complete structure and try to mitigate that chaos. So I always give the example of being like a wall. When I touch someone, I want to be, well, you have to feel what it is to be very weak, you have to feel what is very aggressive, and you have to feel what it is to stop people and being tight. Okay, so what do I do a lot in my class? So I will never give total chaos because then you will have accidents. But if, for example, if it's the very first time a beginner enters the class, they are either scared or not, and you test that. So a game I often give when I teach kids classes or also beginner classes, I have like those rubber bat noodles, you know, like you look in the swimming pool, and I put a game. And the game I really love that game, especially with kids. And grown-ups as well. At the time, it's like, okay, we're gonna play tag. Every time I hit you with a sausage, you're gonna tag 3 walls, and then you're free again, and you can play the game again. Now, it can be doing push-ups, you can do jumping jacks, you can do whatever mission that you like, just something that takes a little bit of time. Right? And whenever you can tag me, when I didn't see you, you get a sausage. So you become the new person to tag. And right away you see what kind of a group you have. You go like, with the sausage, then you see, okay, this group is maybe very respectful or maybe more afraid or okay, no. Then you go like, then you also know what kind of group you have there. Right? So once you know that, once I have the group who's probably a second game I usually do this, and with beginners I always allow. I had a lot of times slaps in the class, especially for beginners. You have to make it playful. Right? So you go with a group the very first time, and they're gonna grapple together. So you teach 2 beginners. Let's grapple. This is something also cool. Like if you go to school, for example, they say, "Oh, we know how to fight. We already know how to fight." You do know how to fight. Okay, fight. What do we do? You cannot punch because it's dangerous, but otherwise, find your knees, fight each other. What do we do? How do we fight? I thought you knew how to fight. Fight. And then they get with their heads on the facts. But to give direction to the game straight away, you need to add slaps, especially for a beginner. And this applies to a complete beginner group, but if I have a beginner class in my gym, and doesn't matter beginner or advanced class, because I actually allow even beginners to go to my advanced classes, to any class actually. So when they come into the group, I allow the beginner, the first class, or even the first week, I allow them to give slaps. Like not hard slap, but like tag, but a little bit hard. Because it's like paintball. If it doesn't hurt it, like paintball is fun because you're a bit afraid to get hit. If it's just, you have to be the adrenaline a little bit, so I think that's fun. So let them slap like that, not in the face, not in the ears. And right away, the beginner has a way to also be a threat to the person in front to win. Right? And you see 2 people going, some like go berserk, and they're tired after how do you feel? I'm getting tired, my conditioning must be bad. Yeah, maybe your conditioning, but then I say, okay, look, even Usain Bolt, who arguably has a very good conditioning, I think I don't know if he never did martial arts before, but and he will probably be more wary about the fact because he's an athlete, but put a person with that conditioning into a jiu-jitsu class, see, with strikes, and I never did that before, he will be equally tired. Like, if I sprint 10 seconds, or Usain Bolt sprints 10 seconds, I think we will be equally tired after the 10 seconds, or comparable. The only thing is, he will be there after 10 seconds and I will be probably here. But the intensity is the same, maybe more or less. See? So you immediately put them with a nose on the fact that they have to like balance their pace, and it's a fun way. This way I find it's higher retention, and also like the person comes in the gym. Why should we pass the guard? Why is it not good to pass the guard? And you can tell them, once you get past the guard, then you can get slapped and it's hard to attack. And it's all good and well, but you're like a few days or weeks into the game before you realize all that they say it's true. You learn better by example. So once you can clap, you straight away feel it's like better to be on top a little bit, and it's better to be close. And then the person doing the claps also feels you can tell them it's better to go for control first and then start slapping. So if you go to that point in like Jiu-Jitsu, I don't think we should really define positions as positions by like with points. Or that's because the points are representative of like how much danger you have in every position. So for example, why is knee on belly points and side control is not? Because in knee on belly you can do damage. Even if though we don't do punches, this is the truth. Like why is mount worse? Because you can easily slap the person from mount. So, and this is a good way to let people experience this straight away, put like a little bit of claps in there. And then I tell later, if a person can clap you, see, he can also grab you. So even for more advanced people, there's no difference in defending, like someone grabbing your collar or someone throwing a punch to your face. The only difference is urgency. You have to really, you cannot take that hit, and here I'm allowed to take mistakes. So even a choke, like for example, the best example would be like the gi choke, putting the gi over the throat. How do you call this? Like from close guard, for example, the cross choke. Yeah. And then it can also. Sorry?
Rape choke.
The
rape choke.
Rape choke.
I call it Bauern choke.
The what?
Like Bauern choke. It's Bauer, peasant.
Farmer.
Bauer.
Power.
Farmer, like farmer.
And so we know what it's about. Like, and we don't really do it in no-gi. But why do we not do it in no-gi? That's a convention that we should not grab people's throats. And then it depends, because I think only in ADCC is it not allowed to do it. Like in MMA, they definitely do in no-gi. They put pressure on the throat and okay. So if you in any case, this for me is simulation of like a choke is a punch. It's just a choke is like a punch is pressure, immediate pressure, and a choke is pressure over time. And the way you defend the punch by doing this and protecting yourself is exactly the same as how you would defend the choke, but just have a little bit more time to react on that. Yeah. So I will go in a different topic now. Is there any questions about anything we did so far? Things you want to throw in between? Nothing? Yeah.
Maybe one question. I'm teaching in university and going back to chaos and order. Because of Corona, we tried new teaching methods, right?
Yes.
And we went to order. We went to chaos because we were like, we want to give them new things to try out, have fun. We got the worst evaluation ever. They wanted order. They said like it's so complicated, so complex.
But is this worse or is it just because people are lazy?
Yeah, that's a question. So I guess my students are lazy.
They are. We all are. Because when the average person comes to the class, right? They should probably come. Like if you tell them, look things up at your. It's also a hobby. This is a bit different. But if they say, okay, go look. I always say this. Okay, this is the position we're gonna do today, and even put it in my group, in my Facebook group. Maybe check this video of Stefan Kesting. I love Stefan Kesting videos as a first entry because it always feel like a broad perspective. I love it. It's not too detailed.
So you will inform them beforehand?
Sometimes,
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Yeah, true. Why not? And then I make my own videos about my class a little bit, so they get like a recap. Because all YouTube videos I do is just recaps from my class from what I'm working on that for the moment. And I started doing that because I didn't want to lose the habit of teaching during the whole pandemic. Because I didn't teach a single class for like almost, except from privates, for like a year. So you lose the habit of teaching. That's why I want to keep explaining. And I'm doing it. I think it's like fun and let's see how it goes. But like, so that's the question. Are there, because I met, of course, let's be honest. Like when I went to university, I slept every single class. I just was, why sit down in that room? Just because it's, if the person ever sees my face, I'm probably not gonna pass my class. That's the only reason that I went. But I always like self-directed learning. I prefer a teacher who says to me, this is what you have to know. Here's the information. Go look for it. So YouTube, awesome. But what is the problem with YouTube? There's also a lot of trash and rubbish. And it's hard to know which kind of video is good at the moment for you. So as a teacher, we should guide maybe to good sources. Right? And I think, okay, have you ever been to the Leuven camp? To the Globetrotter camp in Leuven before? They have a statue in Leuven. It's called Fonske. Fons, like Fons is like a source.
Like what?
I would say source in Italian.
Fonte.
Fonte.
Ah.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So in Latin it's Fons, and they call it Fonske. It's like a little kid putting water in his head and reading a book. Never read it? Never saw the statue?
I probably, well, I wasn't.
I never read it.
But
So it's like a kid reading a book and putting knowledge in his head, like that. And it's called Fons Sapientia. Sapientia, the source of wisdom. I don't think the comparison is fully fair, but what I told the university was this: so this represents the old way of learning. Not completely, because the kid is actually learning the book, reading the book itself. But in the past, I would see learning as a teacher pouring wisdom in the head of the student, and the student sits there and just soaks it all in, right? Whereas right now, it's the teacher should be more like the coach and the one, the guy, the mentor, telling you can find learning there are good sources. And I think the professor should be there, or the teacher should be there to ask questions on those things you don't necessarily know, or maybe point out things. I always find out I learn best by exploring things myself. And to explore things myself, I need time. I did my biggest improvement once I started running my own gym, because I could work the things that I wanted myself, and I decided the time I put into it. Whereas before when I in Jiu Jitsu, my teacher would, for example, teach this position, and I would do my class, and I would do my positional rolling, and when it's open rolls, that's when my real learning happened, because I put myself into those situations. So going more into that topic right now, would be like, if you, okay, I said in my class as well, I try to, when I do positional rolling, I try to avoid the completely middle neutral ground. Because what is the most boring and hard fight to do? For example, someone on his knees just keeps himself tight, not giving anything. Once someone is completely in the middle, there is no clue on how what you should be doing. There is no really a good way to attack a neutral turtle. Or and what is turtle? Well, if you're on your knees, it's turtle, and if a person is underneath me, it's mount, and if I'm in close guard, it's close guard. But the structure, turtle, always remains the same. It's very hard to attack, but if you put something like that a little bit, now there is direction to it. There is also offense to it. Being neutral, there is no attack, and well, it's the middle of attack and defense. It's very hard to get anything going. So I like to start from positions where, for example, the grip fight is already a little bit out of it. So for example, close guard, I would say start with the arm given and give a little of this balance. And then what does the person on bottom have to do? Well, if I can go right away here, I lost an advantage. So you could put him here, and the person on bottom, his reaction has to be right away. How do you put yourself so the person has to fight, to get the arm back, and to get the center back? Good. You can do that. And we can also learn completely the end game. Would be where is the goal, and roll from there. And I found, like for example, I did my back attack class yesterday. I found myself and my students getting better after 2 months of doing this. Just rolling from close guard all the time, from the back all the time, you lose a bit of position. And little by little, you lose 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step, 5 step, you end up in close guard. When is the back take finished, or the attack finished? Once the person who was on the back arrived, close guard, neutral. Now it's not interesting anymore, because the middle is the pathway to all possibilities. So then you stop your positional roll, right? And then this I tell, whenever there's a positional roll, like stop when it's neutral, or don't, because you're also free to explore yourself. But that's, I believe, you get better. And then after you did for a whole, so you do the back attack, and then you lose 1 step, fight back to get it back. You lose 2 steps, fight back, fight back, fight back. 3, 4, 5 until they end up in the neutral position. But before that, there's still always an option to fight for that. And this I tell my students, and I try to let them do it in the class as well when I fight. So, any questions so far? Any other remarks?
Maybe one more question.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe to both of you, because you are all gym owners here or teach classes. So if we are wanting to be the best teacher we can be, how many times do you reflect on yourself, maybe with even students? Like, do you ask for the opinions, hey, did I do a good class? Or do you do that? Or is it, maybe not advisable?
Yeah, I ask when I think about it, but I hope to do it every class. I say, give your feedback about the class.
I guess, like, from a reverse perspective, when I'm teaching in front of 80 students and ask that, no one will raise their arm, because they don't want to be impolite. So if I'm in a one-on-one situation, they are more open-minded to give me feedback.
Yeah.
Do you get really feedback if you're in a class? And
No.
Okay.
but yeah, it's a time issue. Whatever. It's a very good point.
I get
Suggestion
feedback.
box.
Yeah.
They write me messages or something.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. I do that frequently because I taught kids for a long time, and I just started more or less recently to teach adults, and it's different, obviously, and it's also I use it to get better myself because I'm forced to really think about what I want to teach and why and how and stuff, and it's sometimes out of my comfort zone as well, and so it's. Yeah, I frequently ask them and I get feedback here.
I do. Most people will not say anything, but it might also be laziness. Might be that, and people are afraid. But maybe this is something that has to grow. So, like you said, I probably should say you can also write me the message, or you can talk to me one-on-one as well. That should be open. But it's also something like people are not used to this, to the idea that you can criticize a teacher in front of the public. But we should be open to that. There is no shame in failing as long as you don't, well, you cannot say give me feedback and then they say it, so they give critique, but you cannot go defensive.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. So, because whenever, because okay, some person will give critique, and then I will say, okay, thank you. And I might say, this is my reasoning behind it, but I will not say, no, you're wrong because, or yes, but, because yes, but means no.
Yeah.
So don't say yes, don't do that.
Everything before the but is bullshit.
Everything. Yeah, true. So that is something we have to agree on. So, to take into account at least. Yeah.
So the way I do it, I don't ask specifically for feedback, like what do you think about the class. I ask them indirectly, how did the class go for you? And then,
How do you experience the class?
Yeah, so I disguise it a little bit, so they don't actually know they give me feedback, and then maybe they say oh yeah, I would have loved to maybe be a bit more to try around the technique, or today was a little bit not enough rolling for me maybe. So I don't think in order to get feedback you have to ask for feedback. You can just ask for other things, how did the technique work out for you? Maybe or just ask if you're tired, are you tired, or how did you feel about the rolls? And then you get information that for you is feedback, but they don't know that they give you feedback, and so they don't feel uncomfortable by criticizing you or anything. So that could be can be a really good way to get feedback.
I agree. Yeah. I have some people who are very direct, and that's also fun. And they have the opposite as well. That both exist.
I think much has also got to do with how we owners present ourselves to the people. We are very approachable, and we shit talk each other all the time.
Me too.
Yes, and I think that makes a huge difference. If you're this person of respect.
You have to have a lot of banter.
Yeah,
I think it's important.
Yeah, openly and everything. And we encourage people to shit talk us as well.
I will tell you my experience from my very first Jiu Jitsu class. And I will even give the teacher's name because I don't really. You know Kazaka Muniz?
No.
Ever heard Kazaka? Never heard? Google him. That was my very first experience with Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Actually, I'm lying. Because before, right when YouTube, internet, not YouTube, came out, I was only learning techniques from Machados. It was just text online. But my very first physical class, one-on-one, in a group, was with this teacher.
Oh yeah.
Used to train.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of mine. Yeah, but different mind, different
Yeah.
mindsets. Different mindsets. But
No, just mean his his whole periods, but it's okay.
It's fine, but like you have more strict coaching, and that's for some people, and you have more open coaching for other people, and I tend to be more open as well,
Right.
but I'm not going to critique people who like to go more strict. There is things for both, I say, but it's not because I can anymore. But the point was that my very first class was like this, and this really shaped how I trained, or at least think a class should be taught in the first thing, and it really damaged. Okay, was this. So the very first class, it teaches very good instruction, but very like top down, very strict. And then there was a girl on the mat, and she messes up the technique. And she says, "What the hell? I told you to do this. Do it again." And she misses again. "Man, are you stupid or what? What are you doing? What is this? What is this? I cannot take it anymore." "Yeah, but no. Either I'm a bad instructor or you're stupid. Which one of the two is it?" "I'm not stupid." "Oh, so what a bad teacher. Do it again." And she does it again, and it takes a share. "I cannot take it." It throws a share on the mat, not on the head of the girl. But that happened. I was like, okay. And I paid 10 euros for that class, and I drove all the way to Endgame-first. So okay, good. And then these instructors were now very good black belts. They took over that class. Okay, good. And so that's how it's supposed to be. And every time I did some mistake, like, wrong. And then I never throw a share to someone's head. And I never started insulting, but I did get annoyed. Like I still have to do this day after, like when I teach one-on-one classes, I do get annoyed when it happens again and again. Especially if I didn't sleep well. It might be a personal issue, but so this is something we have to go away. I have to go away from that. And I'm actually.
John Danaher slaps people, I heard.
Huh?
John Danaher, he slaps people, I heard. Or when he had his crutch,
Yeah, what was the name again? Like there's one judo teacher in Japan who walks around. I even heard the same of I'm going to say a name, but like that some coaches walk around with a stick on the mat. It's crazy, right? So again, why is that crazy? Because people are afraid to make mistakes. Which brings us to the next piece of data. Is I really became a fan of the Andrew Huberman podcast. Andrew Huberman. It's on Spotify and on YouTube. Check it. It's like many episodes. And the one episode was how to improve learning. And I'm going to read the quote. It's this. So more repetitions per unit of time lead to a higher skill acquisition even if there are errors. See? So you read again. More repetitions per unit of time lead to a higher skill acquisition even if there are errors. And then he gave the example, and I still have to think about how I will fully implement it in my class. But I've worked with it a bit already. And he says, like, for example, you have open loop and closed loop learning. Okay? And I don't even know which was which anymore, but the one. Closed loop is there is immediate feedback on your failure. For example, if you take a dart and throw it to the dartboard, you have immediate feedback if you succeeded or not, depending on what your goal is. You want to hit the bullseye, you want to, if your goal was to hit next to the board, I suppose, different. So, if you think that making mistakes is not, because the fear we have if you repeat like a drill, and the fear we have is that you're gonna to make mistakes, you're gonna make wrong automatizations. Correct? That's my fear as well. But then this is contrary to this, because if you want to practice darts, you fail, but less. Because every time we throw wrong, we have some, okay, we throw there, it went there. So our brain, yes or no, and maybe faster or slower, depending on the person, starts to correct the mistake. Okay, good. So then, another example of a closed loop would be, for example, a backflip in gymnastics. If we were immortal and with adamantium skeletons and like Wolverine's healing rate, the best way to do a backflip, flip and flip, but we cannot do that. See, so it's dangerous. But that would be the best way the quickest way to learn it. Now in Jiu Jitsu, it's open loop because we don't always have direct feedback of what is correct and what is wrong. Now we can say ultimately, if you go closer to the end game, then we have a clear feedback because a choke, okay, the guy tapped, that is correct. But then again, you saw my class yesterday of the back attack?
Just the end.
Sorry?
Just the end.
Yeah. Well,
but I watched the video.
But one of the big things in my class was this: if you have the perfect rear naked choke, no matter you have to be really committing like a lot of errors to really mess that up. If you get completely tight, you can just pull his head out of his torso, and the guy will tap. And he can do it squeezing, and it will tap. So there is not if there is like it's like saying this. If I want to lift a squat 100 kilos, I have to do a perfect squat. And if I have to take 10 kilos, I can even do it like this. So there is no really direct feedback if it's right or wrong, right? So you have to put like a little bit of a goal into it. So when I do drills, and I still have, like, in one way, doing like repetitive drills on an unreacting opponent, it's not bad as a first feeling of a technique, I think. And it would be good if the person is getting better, because he can, this is how I interpret it for the moment. Yeah? If an experienced person does it, he has more of a feeling of what he wants to accomplish, and he can start to steer it and like focus on his own body doing that. But if it's a complete beginner, if you do the Toriendo pass, we have no clue. You don't have any clue because you didn't see the arrow hit the board, right? So then you can, for example, say like what I did in you make playful drills with a little bit of like only one output. For example, when you do the Toriendo pass, I started with chin on chin. In my latest video on YouTube, actually, I started here next to him. And for example, the biggest factor in getting past your guard, for example, I believe is getting put on your both shoulders on the floor.
Getting put what?
Getting put your both shoulders on the floor. Right? So if I can do that, then I can start walking around and recovery becomes harder. If you don't see it, doesn't matter. You can find examples of anything in every situation. So then I made the game, okay, the person on top has to start walking closer and put the person on his back. Good. And the person on bottom has to prevent that. And in the beginning, I don't give any clue. You're not allowed to put feet anywhere, because what we do actually, when we start changing grips and connections, then we have to take more variability into account. Understand? Like, for example, I love what Ruodan is doing with his folk style wrestling, and for example, the collar and elbow. And my first instinct with the collar and elbow wrestling was, okay, one grip, one thing. My first inclination was, okay, interesting, but then also, isn't that weird? Isn't that a bit boring to always have the same grip and lose all that thing? What was before? Okay, and you can argue for like a sport perspective, it's probably more interesting to have many different things. But what I learned from it is like, man, this goes straight to the core of it. And I learned everything really works. You take complexity out of it. You give a little bit less options about the chaos of the grip breaking. You go straight to the core of it. And then you learn, hey man, it can actually make everything work. Because I never knew, I was always very bad in doing head tosses, and I'm still bad in it, but I'm a little bit better right now. Because I actually played this in the kids classes, and I did some group sessions in my gym as well, starting from fixed holds. And then you can get creative. I start from this one, start from the other, this is symmetric. So in all these folk rules, what I see, as far as I know, it's always like a 50-50 hold. You both have the same, but then it gets more interesting if you start, for example, over-underhook, and then you have different goals, and then it's very interesting.
Well, essentially positional sparring, no?
It's positional sparring, exactly, but a bit more open-ended. So what I just want to say is, if you start doing grip breaking and putting different grips, where does it end? It's a different thing to pass and open. It's not all different, but it gets more complex when you're allowed to have feet on different spots. So my thing was first, do that, put the person on the back. And that's like an active drill. And the person on the bottom can try to stop this with minimal effort, maximum efficiency. Because if you start, okay, let's be fair, if you start like splashing around and kick around, you'll also get that. You also achieve probably the same goal against someone who's not experienced, but you will get tired and it will not be very beneficial to learning in this case. So what I found out, for example, through doing this, that for me the best way to recover guard was posting my elbow on the floor. Does anyone else do this? Because if you do, you should have told me. Because it took me 20 years to find this. I always put my foot and then I get past. So this is just like something that changed my whole game. Or not my whole game, but like a very big part of my guard retention in just 1 month, putting the elbow on the floor, rotating it. To the point where I spent 2 weeks just teaching about this detail in different spots. Right? And then the funny thing is this, people come in and then like a beginner said, yeah, it makes sense, no, it's totally logic. Yes it is, yes it is. And that's a pity, because now you don't value the word of it, because we didn't get squashed for 20 years just to find out this. So here you go, it's for free. So it's also something to be said about running for years with shoes of 20 kilos and getting the resilience in doing it, and then all of a sudden after 20 years, now the shoe is gone. That's how I feel by finding a detail like that. So
You turn in or you turn?
I will show in the. No, I will not show, man. It's my secret.
Okay. Keep the secrets there.
I will show. Just give the shoulder on the mat. You start falling. If you put the foot, then people can claim some inside space. If you put the elbow in your roll, there's still a place for both, of course, but it adds some extra element. So then, okay. So before I give this detail, after the people first suffered a little bit, not 20 years, but 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 minutes. That was my first part. Then the second drill I did was, okay, now we're here, and now we're gonna track the head. This is specific to the, so then I call, is it heuristic? Yeah. If the head goes away, my foot goes this way. If the head goes in, my foot goes this way. And I can show you in a position later how that exactly applies to that. Okay, so now we have 3 elements. I'm gonna put you on your back. I'm gonna walk here where your head goes there. Because when your head goes there and my foot goes here, it's easier to put you on the back. And if your head goes in, I can spin to the other side and control your head and do a long step pass. Just specific to that. Ah, cool, 3 elements. And this we do very slow. We track and we feel a little bit what happens. Okay, now it's time for chaos. We put that a bit more chaos. We start fighting from there, but still, you're only allowed to do those things. You're not allowed to change any grips. Okay, good, fine. Then, the third round, for example, was, okay, now you're allowed total chaos. You're allowed to read no, actually going ahead. Before I said after the exercise of putting people on the back, then I gave the element of putting the elbow on the floor. I now feel how this applies to you. And the thing is, a drill is always static. But with putting the elbow on the floor and you make it more like a game, you're like a little bit of dynamic in it, then you feel when you do right and wrong. And that is what I believe that this Andrew Huberman gets at. It's not even his research, he found it somewhere else. He's like a neurology professor. Yeah. And I think by doing this, we go more from an open loop, more to a closed loop in a very open loop system. And we get direct feedback, and then the people can correct their mistakes. Because in the end, I don't really care how you put them on the shoulders. I mean, it took me 20 years to find the detail of the elbow, but I had decent guard attention before. It was not like I will get my guard passed, it was just more difficult. See? So we have to give our students that experience as well, albeit in a shorter, more effective version. So then I would say, okay, now the goal is the person on bottom is gonna find his way to get all the hooks and the grips out. So usually, if you pass open guard and we're already controlling the legs, the battle is getting a foot in the elbow, foot on the hip from the person on bottom. Now I'm gonna try to stop that from happening. In the beginning, you say 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50%. And that percentage, it highly depends on the discipline of the student. Because some will never, like some eager students always go berserk. There's even students in my gym who I cannot even show a technique on. If I ask him to show a technique, they always start fighting me. So and occasionally I turn into a fight. You see, but this is not useful. Okay. And in the past, what I used to do in the past was always, I would get put on the spot. I felt as a teacher, so this person is now trying to disprove that what I'm showing you works. So then I fight him to prove it, and sometimes you actually fail proving because you actually lose. So that happens as well.
And then you have to go like, that can happen.
Yeah. But right now, it also comes with maturity. Like if you train longer, in the past, as a blue belt or before, it wasn't even about the belt. Like I'm saying, in the past, I also always felt I had to prove it was effective. Just to the students who came in, the jiu-jitsu really worked on me. This was that MMA was widespread. Around everybody knows MMA. Everybody comes to the gym. Let's see how it works. Now that most of the people believe that it works. So it's kind of that. Like if you get more, like right now, I don't believe I have to go into every question or every challenge just to prove that I know how it works. But this is something that grows with time, I guess. So I don't allow those people. I will correct them on their behavior. I will try to make them better part of the demonstration, but I will not allow their behavior to disturb my class anymore.
Public humiliation, always.
Occasionally. Occasionally.
Yeah,
Like-
no, it's best. Works best.
Yeah. Like occasionally, like, but it also goes with the banter, like
Or
with
slam.
the cheating. Like there's one guy who, like, I see it on his face. He asks questions just to get under my nails.
Yeah.
And I say, anyone questions? Maybe you have another stupid question.
Yeah.
No, not today. I will have a stupid question tomorrow. Ah, please. And
Yeah.
and it's fun, you know, because you can say everything with a smile. That's okay. You can say the most reasonable thing, but say it's serious and still getting like understand it wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, we actually encourage that kind of behavior as well. I
What
think-
to
yeah, they can.
to bust each other's
I think
balls.
it's okay. No, but also it's okay to question
Of
what
course.
we're doing and what we're teaching,
course.
and also to be a little bit big mouthed about it. It's
But in relation to questioning, I do this to my students, but sometimes I forget, but I have to read. You can ask any question, but there is a moment for every question. You can ask me during the
Yeah.
class, you can ask me what, why, when. What, why, when. What are you doing? How are you doing it? What and when are you, and why are you doing it, and when are you doing it? So what, how, why, and when. And what I'm not allowing in the middle of this is what if. Because if you go down the what if pathway, then they take over your whole class. What if, what if, what if, what if. So when someone asks what if, something else. That's my silence. What to do if this happens? Something different.
as white belt things.
Well, also higher belt, because I see the more thing when. So if it's a higher belt, I might occasionally go a little bit into it. Because
It's also probably a reasonable question.
that's a reasonable question, yeah. Because when they start to do their drilling, they're not going to stick exactly to my drill either. So they might need what if to steer their learning at that moment. But as a beginner, we maybe should not really allow what if questions. So then I say, okay, what if is at the end of the class. So why? Because the what if is important for me because I'll learn next time. This means I didn't give my class properly, or I didn't get to the end of my class. Maybe it was part of tomorrow. But maybe the person doesn't come tomorrow, so he's allowed to his what if question at that moment. And also, if I something completely new that I didn't think about, then it improves my learning. And for me, it's not about, how can I say, in the past when I started to learn Jiu-Jitsu, I always would go on YouTube for the next thing, became a technique collector. And I stopped doing that, because right now I just try to solve the problems that I have. And I don't like to go looking for solutions straight away. So when I learn, well, the less big revelation in my game, there's probably bigger things, big things still out there, but for one of the biggest revelation, for example, was leg locks in general. Like I didn't, we come from the mindset, heel hooks are dangerous for a while, and we didn't, so until 5 years before, I like flirted with leg locks, but not systematically, like Luther Libre is probably like a big step ahead.
Not in Germany.
In general, but probably there is some like, well, I'm not going to go into that history, but overall, leg locks were not fully explored. So for me, the big revelation was single leg X. So how do I explore single leg X? What did I do? Stephen Kesting, and I go there. And then often people like blame him for, like many people will like it, and many people, it's not detailed, it's not high level, blah, 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 bullshit. You have to take it for what it is. It's give you general ideas. Because that gives some direction to what I'm doing. And then I'm going to put myself in a position and start learning from it. Just see what comes. And I teach this, and I teach that. Okay, good. And then after a while, I see, okay, this always arises. This problem always arises. And then you start finding solutions for that. What I found in every single position that I train is this. It always starts with connection. What is connection? We can talk an hour about that, but it's like, well, how you call this? Like form tension. The basic of any sport, probably. In gymnastics, for example, this is a form tension. Can I keep my own structure? Whatever that structure may be. Okay? If someone can always lift your arm, you don't have form tension. Pop. So a form tension is connection to oneself. Second form of connection is connection to the floor. Can I put pressure into one thing? Maybe if this foot has to become hard, I have to lift something else. Third step is connection to the opponent. Right? And how do you teach connection to an opponent? The best way I found is you breathe in and you breathe out a few times. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. To the like yoga breathing. And you tell them this, every time you breathe in, you keep what you already have. Because many people, they connect and then they bounce back from that. So you breathe in. Every time you breathe out, you take something more. Breathe in, don't lose connection, don't lose tension. And then breathe out again. And these are teaching on an individual basis, because it's impossible to really let people feel this, I believe, in a group setting. And once we have that, we're properly connected in that position. For example, single leg X, which is a quite difficult position to keep connection in. But because it's so difficult, it's also good, because if you don't have proper connection, we fall right away. So there's something to be said about even giving a position like that to beginners. And once I'm there, and I'm going to ask the person on top to remove my hooks and feet with like 10% strength. Because if I can just push my foot away, then now we know there's no proper connection. Once we feel, okay, there's proper connection, then the question is, I'm going to stay there, and the person on top is not allowed to remove my feet or whatever. It has to stay there. But if you remove feet, for example in the single leg X, you have to teach the X guard right away as well. You have to teach two things, and the open end where the foot dangles in the air. So we stay here. We're not going to do that. That's a question for the X guard, wherever it leads to. It's for a different day, different connection to train at that moment, and then we tie them back together. We start first here. Then, first thing I do, my opponent is allowed to walk around a little bit. And we're going to feel if we can keep the connection. And sometimes we lose, sometimes we keep it. And then I feel, okay, how can I prevent my opponent from moving? If he rotates, it's really the question, counter rotate. Goes there, counter rotate. He walks in, I go forward. He goes away, I go away. Or follow. It can be different things. See? Then the second thing is, what I'm going to explore is, how can I use his motions to my benefit? Puts his weight there, sweep him. Puts his weight there, leaves the foot, sweep him. When he's forward, kick him over. And there is always, the answers are always the same in every position. Then you see the patterns there. You always sweep in the direction where the out of balance goes. And the third phase is, how can the person on top do the same for the third phase? How can the person on top do the exact same thing for me? How can he moves around and we reverse the roles? Then the last phase is, now we're going to see if the person is in the middle. Because that's when it's hard, because the person is in the middle, there is no clue what you should be doing. And we can see, how can the person on bottom use his motions? We learned the previous part to set up one perfect thing. For example, in the case of him, the single leg X, there's always one dominant technique. I think would be to push away. How the person falls or push back. When he pushes back, and you do this very slow and like a punch like this, for example. You push pressure back, I resist. He comes to the center, and now I'm going to do the second. And you drill that, and that you can drill. And you work with that. Like in any setting, can be more playful, can be more strict. Let the people do that, but usually I find when I put that, and some people start to make it a little bit of a fight right away, some do it more structured, that's fine. I even say my students, if you hear me say the same story only for the third time this week, because often I teach even 2 weeks the same class, if that's important, but sometimes little details different, I allow them to, you already saw it, go straight into positional fighting and do that for an hour, I don't care, do that. See? And the last phase would be what is the hardest, is when both the people have a start from neutral, have a fight both to each other, then you do that. Then you add the X guard thing to it. And only then do you allow the grip breaks. Or some form of that. And I try to do this in every single position that I find. And not even, and this way, I can actually even teach positions that I have no clue of teaching that I never did before. Because I will go through the same process as my students. I will encounter the same problems that I have. Only difference is I have to solve those problems. But then I can say, sometimes I say, okay, in the middle of the class, then I won't find, so I have, if anyone have any questions? Nobody. So how is it possible you don't have any questions? I always have questions. Okay, if you guys don't ask, then maybe try to solve my question. I ask my question. And then sometimes you get an answer. And sometimes I don't. And then I will, okay, so you guys have an answer, let's analyze it together. And you have to teach them the thought process also in that aspect. So, any other remarks so far? Questions? Yes?
I have a question how to teach to beginners, and you can probably give 100 details to a technique, and what do you say is the right amount of details for beginners so that you don't give too much so that they are completely.
Okay, I think, topic of this class, order and chaos.
Yeah.
You start from total order, or you explore total chaos, in all it's as safe as possible. And you explore total order, okay? And then you bring them both together. Too much order, too long, creates boredom. Too much chaos creates danger. Okay, so repeat your question one more time. So how do I give the right amount?
Yes, maybe if you give them just 2 details.
Okay, so the amount of details. Maybe I would say don't give any details in the beginning. Can be the open, playful approach. Like I really love Christian classes. Like Christian's class, the way he gives, like it's like he's teaching heuristics. To be honest, like don't allow to touch the leg in his first class this week. This is often okay. This is cool because and then begin touch. See, this would be a very good approach to the very first time you teach. But it's also a very good approach as an open drill for the more experienced person. So you have to both explore that. So I don't necessarily think there is a difference between teaching beginners and advanced, depending on how you define the beginner. If the beginner is someone who does not know what is a squat, who does not have any idea of how to move the body, of proper reception, of how to moving, then that person is very dangerous for himself in the class, and you cannot put any chaos into it. But if it's like a gymnastic or a rugby player who already did many sports before, then you can be more chaotic, right? Like one of the biggest examples is just like how people, because I have my class here about injury prevention, see? And you know the windshield wiper? Yeah, so you often see this, for example, and people who, and often even experienced people do this behavior. For example, you're here, see? And they put their foot like that. And what you see them do is give a push like this. Mm-hmm. You see why it is dangerous for the knee. If you put it in proper alignment, you can do that. But the moment you push, you put your weight on that person, and that person can fall, and then you fall on your face if you push. You call it pushing beyond advantage. It's like a haymaker. Has its place, but it's a bit dangerous, right? Because you cannot predict. Whenever you push into someone and you go hard, then you like a haymaker, you think that the moment of start is going to be the same, the situation stays the same the moment you land. So I always like to do baby steps, if there is enough time to do so. So many people have put their knees like that and then they push. And then you put a lot of danger on your ligament, for example. So people with that behavior, you can let them roll and it will be okay until it's not okay. And then you feel after 10 years you have a bad knee and you don't know why. So you have to windshield wiper, bump. And almost never, put pressure in one direction. Because you know what is toreador? Toreador, like bullfighting. How can a toreador beat a bull? Because a bull always does straight vector strength. And the toreador does rotational, not even strength because it just evades. So rotation beats straight vector if the rotation, point of rotation grips behind the straight vector. If you put a knife to me, and so the knife comes, and I deflect it, like here, then the knife will miss. If I deflect here, then it will hit. But the deflection can grip, well, the knife is more dangerous, but you can grip wherever you like, being more effective on the end of the lever. See? Yeah. Whereas this is only one split second, it has to hit. It's a rotational usually, so I rarely ever use straight vector. And so in my class, I put a lot of detail and time into things like that, but I mention over and over and over again, connection, body positioning. So in an ideal world, I would say, to complete total beginners should maybe not touch, if you were completely safe, should maybe not touch a partner at all. See, Jiu-Jitsu is the art of controlling your opponent with your own body as economically as possible. How can you control your opponent's body with your body if you do not even control your own body at the same time? But it's also hard to learn proper structure without proper feedback. So if I want to teach you a squat, for example, and I'm not going to put, the safest thing would be not putting any weight in your neck. But if I don't put any weight in your neck, you're not going to feel why this is better or worse. So you put a goblet squat, 16 kilos, 8 kilos, doesn't matter.
Turkish get-up is a good example. Turkish get-up is a good example.
That's already a harder exercise, but it's a very good example. I do those a lot. When I do fitness, I see it as a technique training, postural technique training. Yeah. And people like, you want to do fitness, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. You get stronger with fitness, that doesn't even matter about the weight. If you just use fitness as a technique to okay, there is more benefit going from 0 to 10 kilos than there is from 10 to 100 kilos. Okay. Just by doing the, okay, if you do fitness, I feel like I increase your strength in the first 2 weeks, like bam! Why? Because you always squat with a round back and now you fix your back. I got stronger. But you really didn't, you just learned to use your tools a bit better, right? So then you know how you apply this to train. The problem is also goes with my definitions. So gymnastics is the art of moving your own body as economically as possible in relationship to gravity. Yoga as economically as possible in relationship to your own body and to your breathing. There's also a part in everything in breathing. Weightlifting as the art of moving your own body as economically as possible in relationship to aesthetic weight. Jiu-Jitsu is the same thing. Control another body as economically as possible with your own body, and so in relation to a dynamic weight. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, Jiu-Jitsu is the same thing as doing squats, but every once in a while, someone gives you a push. And if I do my squats like this and someone pushes me, then the weight will lay there. If someone pushes me during the gym, something will happen that I might not predict. And if I don't know how to put my foot correctly, I will injure my knee. So there it comes to the point again. Beginners, in an ideal world, maybe people like beginners should not do complete open rolls depending on the person. If it's like if it's a person without zero knowledge of how his body works, you put him in an open environment, that's completely dangerous. I will pair a complete beginner, I will compare with pair him with a higher advanced player. But because of the limits of the group setting, I cannot always see what's happening. So I tell them at the beginning of the class, who are the beginners? Okay, good. The two of you do not go together. Do not roll together. And I also tell them, and in the end, people have to take it into, if I don't follow my guidelines, we're not living in an ideal world, I cannot go all the way there, but I will tell them, do not go complete beginners. How do you recognize a complete beginner? Someone who starts to breathe after 10 seconds, like, that person is a danger to you. When I roll it on the camp, and they ask me, and always after a roll, how did you find my roll? How did you find it? Well, after 1 minute we're breathing like, and some people will roll me and they say, that's really cool, you really gave a lot, you really gave a lot. It's really true, we can roll. Cool, you gave me a chance to explore. Good. Another person would tell me the complete opposite. Will say, that's really cool, you really put me tight, I really couldn't get any way out. Because I'm being nice, I say it's always cool, maybe I think something different, but what does this mean? Which kind of person? And I tell, look, what can you improve? Well, I didn't give you anything, why did I give you not anything? It's not because I want to put my ego and I want to destroy you, it's just you're a danger to me. If you breathe like that, I will not give you my arm. No way. If you breathe calm and I can trust you not to break it, then I will give you whatever. I will even let you poke my eye if you can do it like that. For self-love. It's a joke, but yeah, okay, fine. So, and then it applies in the class as well, so we need people to teach us behaviors. But in the end, ego always plays a part. And we need ego, we need it a lot, but we have to mitigate it. Right? So to answer your question, how do we do that? Every person is different. You have to see that every person is different from each other and from who you were yesterday. Because if I'm tired, I just want to roll. And if I'm super awake, then I might be more attentive to technique. And it depends on how you learn. I always like to learn. Like here, I don't do a single class, but I watch most of the classes. And just because, to get ideas and to have things I work with. And what really works for me is if I don't want to pursue rabbit holes that might have a dead end. And I can give some examples of rabbit holes that I pursued with a dead end in the end. But I still learn from it. So just if I see someone do something and an instructor I trust, I say, okay, I'm going to put time into this. And that is cool. Or for example, a rabbit hole with a dead end that I have. Okay, this is stupid, they're going to say, okay. But like at a while, that 3 people in my gym in 2 weeks injured their thumb. Just like doing this, and they ski thumb it's called. But man, what the hell, it always happens. From now on, keep your thumbs closed. You're not allowed to grab anymore. Do this. Say stupid. It's not that stupid. There's thought behind it. But to the point, I was very strict. Close, you keep your thumb closed. You're not doing it. I say, stop. And because I really want to have any injuries, I put too much order. And then people would probably say, man, what the guy, this guy is so stupid. And after, I did this for 2 years. I didn't use my thumb a single time in 2 years. Just for grips, cover grips. But no, I didn't do this. Okay. And I say, what a waste of time. No. because now maybe I should not have done it so long, but I really find what is the limits of this grip. Okay, what is the limit? I can't hold a single limb, but you make it work, kind of, you know. And then the same thing happened to me when I had my hernia in my 30s. It was more forced. For 5 years, I rolled like this, at least not getting stacked, keeping my back straight and really try to roll like that. What is the downside? You're very static. You cannot invert a lot of things. You only go. Your game becomes singular instead of binary if you do that. But at the same time, you learn the limits. And you learn how deep you can go into it. So it always has value, I believe. Does it answer your question, or was it more? We need more something more direct? I will give you something more direct.
In a sort of way you answered it.
Give me your question one more time, because I also have a tendency to go on a tangent.
The problem I thought about is when you give too many details, the beginners they do, because too many details they do move wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if you give too little details, they do it wrong anyway. So
okay,
what should you do?
I think keep it more playful.
Yeah.
Keep it as playful as possible while limiting the risks. And keep it fun. Because think about this: if people go to the gym, they will learn. They will learn, and that's ultimately our goal. We're not here. I have the dream of having like a quarter ride of myself. That's like the perfect competition dream. But that's like cool if that happens, right? But the main thing is, what are the main people to work with? That's like recreative people and to improve people's lives in a broader sense, right? That's why we do it, I believe. So, how do we keep the most people engaged on the mat and being there? Well, I know for a fact that the old approach, beginning doesn't work, because the very first, it's not even very. When my coach was also teaching, like I just said early on, and we had for years 5 people, 3 people, 10 people on the mat. Okay. Since I do my own gym, see, it was like 10 years ago. Now we have 200 people, which is a big step from the past. And we can say society changed. No, the approach changed. I believe. So, keeping it playful, but then also we have to put something deeper in it. Gives me to the next topic. See, well, I also mentioned in my class yesterday, I'm a fan of the artist Pollock. You know Pollock? And I already said order and chaos, working in between 2 extremes, and the middle ground gets figured out. You teach people grip fighting, you teach people how to keep the back. And the middle ground will be figured out. And those middle ground, you give occasionally a tip. Right? So what is the paintings of Pollock? Yeah, what is it? It's like look at it, it's total chaos. Looks like total chaos, but it isn't.
Yeah, it isn't.
It's structured total chaos. If I say correctly, there is the same repeating patterns going inside. So when you look at the Pollock painting, if you go completely deep or completely far, it looks exactly the same. Right? If you look at a tree, it's the same thing. A tree is very simple mathematical formula. It's how you call it? The trunk splits into a branch. The branch splits and keeps splitting.
Always the same.
And for all we know, it keeps splitting like that all the way until we reach the Planck length. What do we know, right? Unifying theory. What is the big quest in physics? Is to find a theory that unifies the movement of the planets, and the movement of the smallest thing is the particle. Right? If it's true there, it should be true for us. So you can teach Jiu-Jitsu very broad, what is moving around, and teach the smallest detail. Now, what is cool about Pollock? Whenever you see the smallest part, you cannot recreate the whole painting. That's not possible. But from understanding the smallest part, the same mathematical formulas apply there. The same principles apply there. So if you go to look at a broad painting, you can at least explain or see why it's similar. So what I believe, and I might be wrong, is we give the broad perspective. So the broad perspective of Jiu-Jitsu would be put them on the ground, get past the legs, mount, submit. Put them on the ground, get past the legs, person rotates away, take the back, submit. Person on bottom, don't get past, sweep the person, and the same story repeats. And then dead-air-headed, fight for leg entanglements first, and that's already the second part. That's plan B, in the broader sense. So it's a broad perspective. And if you give people that broad perspective, and you also give them the completely tiniest detail and then why it matters. And then they see, man, you get appreciation for the whole. And the in-between, they can see how deep the rabbit hole is, and then they probably can start applying it to themselves. Understand? If you will explain to someone how does a human body work, then I would say it's a head that moves in this way. Arms that can do chaos, legs that can do chaos, and like I said in my class yesterday, the core is very simple. Left, right, forward, back, and rotate. Easy. See? And then if I was a perfect biological, I would say go all the way down and explain how the single cell works. And I think an alien landing on Earth, finding the information how the cell works and how the whole body works, if you put time, it can figure out the whole in between. If you also describe where is the organs maybe. Yeah? So the same is with Jiu-Jitsu. Why would it be different? I know it's a bit philosophical. It might not everybody might like this idea, but that's how I believe it is, to find that. And the middle ground of the chaos is where people will figure out things themselves, I hope, and think.
I think also, I just thought about it a little bit. I even teach beginners more details, but I limit their options.
That's good.
That is because, like for example, when I teach something from half guard, to beginners, I will explain a good structure of a half guard, how to behave there, lay on your side, do this, do that. When I have advanced people, I say, okay, go to your preferred half guard, and then we start from there and explain some technique or something. And I have more options. You can do this and this and this and this. And the beginner, it's more about explaining why and what and how. And yeah.
Does anyone know, what's his name again? The book I know, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
What is the name of the
Tim Ferriss?
Tim Ferriss, exactly. Tim Ferriss. If you look what he says, what describes what he does, he says, I follow the 80-20 rule. I am about the 80%, he said, that allows to learn things fast. And then experts are into the 20%, how to make something perfect. And this, to do this whole more, this is what Christian said at one point. I think in his Create Something class, he's like, what the hell is right? He said this, I'm a black belt, he said, Christian, but I'm probably not the best black belt in the world. He said that, the same for me, I'm probably not the best black belt in the world. I'm also a tour operator. And I'm probably one of the shittiest tour operators in the world, he said, with those words. And I'm also an instructor. I'm probably not the best instructor in the world, but I can give instructions. And I said, and on one camp, my DJ dropped out, and I did myself DJing in one night. And I'm probably the shittiest DJ in the world, but I'm probably the best black belt, tour operator, teacher, DJ in the world, if you apply those things. When I train, I'm shitty in yoga, but I'm better than yoga. And so yoga, fitness, swimming, climbing, teaching. I'm probably 80% in those, or not even 80%, but like shitty in those. But okay, good. But I try at least to perfect my jiu-jitsu and my teaching skills, which is probably not the best thing. But just the fact you want to improve will make you improve, because the fact you want to improve makes you question yourself. And when you question yourself, it's going to lead to improvement. And then depending on the person's situation and context and whatever, improvement will happen faster or slow. But as long as I would be I'm not like in my gym also. Like I will occasionally students teach, even if not a perfect teacher, but just depending on what the person is. If he's like open, then I will, because I know he will get better after a while. Often people ask, man, I get the purple belt or the black belt or the brown belt, I don't think I deserve my belt. Maybe you don't. Because to be honest, the belt is already like very arbitrary, a choice, something we put on something. But if you don't word it, but I gave it to you, but I think you word it, and if you don't believe it yourself, then at the very least, the fact you always want to improve, if you're not worried now, training will be worded in a year. And okay, good. And otherwise, it doesn't matter. You know? So, Tim Ferriss. The best video I ever watched of Jiu-Jitsu that completely changed my thinking, the way I teach and how I learn Jiu-Jitsu. There's a video online of Tim Ferriss doing Jiu-Jitsu in Marcelo Garcia's academy. Ever saw?
No.
No? You saw? Watch it. But don't watch it on your cell phone. Because for some reason the video is mangled, the sound is garbled if you watch it on your cell phone, it only works on my computer.
Okay.
It's weird. And I even will, if you send me a message, I will share the link. And it's about, he goes to Marcelo Garcia and he says, okay, so this Tim Ferriss did before, he became like champion in the martial arts at some point by using the rules. I think it was in Wushu, and then he at least won a tournament. He said, okay, how can I be as good as possible in 1 week in Jiu Jitsu? And he went to Marcelo Garcia's gym, and there is a teacher called Jos Waitkin. Know him?
Yeah.
Black belt grandmaster chess, who wrote the book The Art of Learning. Okay, and this actually started the whole conversation about why I want to teach, how I teach Jiu-Jitsu, or how I teach Jiu-Jitsu. And it is about this. He's like a grandmaster in chess, and he said, okay, I got bored in chess, and I didn't touch a single chessboard for 3 to 4 to 5 years. And but I'm going to teach you now how I can use chess to learn Jiu-Jitsu. And he said, look, if people explain, who can play chess here? Okay, cool. Doesn't matter, you know how it broadly works, right? I said, okay, most people want to learn chess. They just start and explain, that's a pawn, that's a king, that's a queen, and this is how they move. And maybe they give some openings, and that's a checkmate play. And it's fun. It's really fun to learn like that, but learning will be very slow. And because it's too broad, it might even be not fun at all anymore because you lose all the time. Right? But so what he does is, I'm going to turn it around, he said Endgame-first learning. So what it was like, he puts, what is the most uncomplex moment of chess? It's the moment of the checkmate. The moment of the checkmate is when there is no complexity anymore, the game is done. Right? So the least complex part of chess is one step before the checkmate. And what is the least complicated game situation where there's still like play possible is king and pawn versus a single king. The 2 kings, game is over, it's a stalemate. King and pawn is king and pawn versus king, the simple situation where there's still victory possible and one person clearly has the advantage. Understand? If you see the video. There's also another reason why because it also shows you sometimes why timing is important. If you move your king first, the guy might be out, you might have a stalemate. If you force him to move first, then you win. Understand what I'm saying? So, in any case, so you go from least complex and you add pieces. I play chess now with my 4-year-old daughter when she was 3 years old. And how did I do it? I put pawn, only not even a king. Get your pawn to the other side. Step, 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 step. And then you say, okay, you get 3 steps and I get 2 away. I win. Yeah, you win because you have a lead. And then I put 2. And then I say, okay, you can capture the pawn like that. So then I have to start playing, okay? And then at the end, now I play with her, all the pawns and the king, versus all the pawns and the king. But I want the queen. Okay, you get a queen. Okay, you get a queen. And then, I win. Because you just make it a game like, okay, you have to reach the other side or take all the pawns of the person. You can be fun with that. Or even do like some checkers. See, and then a teacher, now that's how you make a queen. Because the queen is the motion of queen is very simple. All the way. And the motion of the king is very simple. And the motion of the pawn is more complicated than the other piece, but more difficult than a king because it's limited. But it's still understandable for even a 3-year-old. And you get bored after 10 minutes, you have to be good with my games. And now my idea is, okay, I explained the queen can move straight and can move diagonal. Now I can explain how a rook moves straight, it's like half a queen, and I can explain how I buy a bishop, but a bishop is hard because it's 2 different colors of bishop. And what is the hardest piece in chess to explain is the horse. Yeah, what the hell? It's the knight. It's actually the knight. I say horse, but it's knight. So it's like the 7th.
In German, it's even called the jumper.
The jumper.
Yeah.
Because birds want to be special. In India, it's the elephant.
Oh, okay.
This is an elephant. Okay. So, but in any case, so you go from very easy to complex. What is the most complex part is the opening of chess. And how do we approach Jiu-Jitsu? You start standing, you don't touch each other, and then go there. No. If you learn like I loved Francesco's class on the knee slide. Go from the end, and then we think that like I would love to find a topic where we disagree on. It would be fun because then that will be room for improvement.
At some point, we find.
Maybe coffee.
Sorry?
Maybe coffee.
Cappuccino, and I agree with that. But I went back. See, I learned from him by the disagreement. And the pineapple he also convinced me. Yeah, but okay. So, and also there's something. I have a lot of instructors in my gym, and I think it's important that we agree. on most things. We can agree on disagree on preference. I prefer stand-up. I prefer ground. That's fine. But in topics, we have to agree. For example, I have one teacher in my gym, and I ask him, what do we do? So he teaches, this is a situation, either this, technique one, and I can also do this. Which one option do you choose when? What do you do when? I just choose. I can choose. No, you can't choose. I really believe there is still an ideal thing to do. Maybe not, because you can sometimes choose if you take your sweeping opportunity to go for a lock or to go on top. But if you take the moment out of everything, there is always an ideal connection and an ideal to stick. And then you can decide if you go away and not. Okay? Because that's physics, I believe. It's like, okay, I'll give you an example of physics. A wall is best supported, if it's one beam, it's best supported with a 45-degree beam. Correct? Yes. You can replace that beam probably also with a very strong beam that does this. But it's not as ideal. And you can replace this beam with an even better structure by putting another beam in half here, another beam, so replace the two, so the one beam that goes like this, replace it with two beams that go like that. It's probably even stronger. Or maybe not, I don't know. But so this is the same in Jiu Jitsu. If we take something away, we can find different solutions, but the physics always stay the same. But I went off topic. So really check the video of Tim Ferriss, and then apply that to Jiu Jitsu, and apply it in broader perspective in anything you learn. Because something I didn't talk about. It was about, I wanted to put in the beginning as an example together with the swimming, like learning in different situations. And so I started my talk about swimming. I also want to add the topic of language. And we talked about it yesterday as well with the puzzle you make, with the words, which was very interesting. But for example, when I did French in school, as a part of school curriculum, for my 11 years till I was 18 years old. And I left school when I was 18 and I didn't speak French. I could reproduce, I could think, I could translate, but I couldn't have a conversation. Okay, and it took years to correct that. And then I was very motivated. I wanted to do Spanish, and I bought a book, Assimil. Ever see Assimil? It's Spanish here, Dutch there. The method is listen to the tape and understand what you can. Repeat the words, even if you don't understand them. Then read the Spanish. Think what it says. No clue. Read the Dutch. Now I know what it says. I read the Spanish again. And I don't have to translate words. I just have to know what it says. And read for itself. Do this. Okay, good. Then do like 5 or 10 exercises, like 10 phrases, so like 10 minutes exercises. Then read some grammatics. Don't even learn it, just read it, like gloss over it. Do this every day, 15 minutes. I said 15 minutes, I did an hour a day. And when I was in the car, I was always listening to that tape, repeating the same voice over and over. If it's unconscious learning, it's still learning. Right? And I spoke Spanish, kinda, for 2 months and a half. I went to Madrid, spent like a month in Madrid, and after 1 month I could speak Spanish. I never learned Portuguese before. I went to Brazil, and I never even completed the book of Assimil. I just did 60% of the classes and I just learned as it goes. Then I went to Brazil for 3 months. I bought the book Assimil Portuguese, completed 30 of the 100 classes. And with the knowledge of Spanish, I was able to fill in the gaps. And I'm not speaking perfect Portuguese, but I can make myself understandable. So why is this better? Because it's a playful word. Can I write perfect? No. Can I express myself? Yes. Will I improve myself also? Because in school, translate the word for table. What's it in French again? What's the word for French again?
For what?
For table. I forgot.
In what?
In French, the word for table.
Table?
Table. Imagine you don't know the word for table. And you have to say, when I look at my dictionary, that's the word. No, if you speak, I bought a new, what's the word? What is it that people use to sit around and eat around? Table. Now I know the word table. You know, and like this you use language to describe things. Okay? And you also see, by learning one language, you increase your skill in the other language. Which brings to another topic that Francesco brought up in his how to teach class is switch it up. Right? For example, you can go all the way into because the principles are always the same. You can go all the way into the rear naked choke, and the rear naked choke connection will also improve your single leg, because it's also the same muscles you use to connect to that leg. And the rotation and the core movements are also the same. So in the end, don't always ask perfection from yourself and from every student in a single topic, because maybe later, I always say, like, I see people in my class writing everything down. I see also in the camp people taking notes of everything, and I was the same. See? And it's good in one sense that because you redo it, it's like mental training, and you reread it. But I don't think it's valuable in the sense of collecting techniques, because you will lose it. You take your notes, but then maybe don't look. Even if you never look at your notes, it's valuable for the mental training. But it's not valuable as a collection of techniques. Because I don't get it. No, you will not get it. But in 1 year you revisit it, it will make more sense. See? So, anything else we need to talk about? Any questions? Welcome.
Submission only, is this here or?
I'm gonna check where I was.
Arts?
Back in the hall.
Yeah, I went for 2 hours. So, anything else I have to teach, to talk about? Easy. A few things I want to.
Nebenan.
Sorry.
Ich habe Michael auch, I didn't see Michael on the Mets, but I'm not sure.
He's not here. So, if you guys want, I can stop, or I can talk like a few more topics I can quickly gloss over. So, you're always free to walk out. It's getting boring. Or if you it's a very, I realize what I said, it's a very good, bad way to say it. You feel like you're better. That's fine. So, one thing I can talk is the crux of a technique. In climbing you have the crux. What is the crux? It's the most difficult part of the technique. Choking is easy once you're here. It's getting there that's hard. So, an A route, an easy climb, and a B route, slightly more difficult, is exactly the same climb. It's only the B climb has one difficult spot into it. Understand? And if you do the B right away, you will be too tired. If you do it with zero skill, like the A is basically a ladder, you climb it, it's super easy. The B is a ladder until the crux. And if you climb like on strength, you get here, you get tired, and maybe you die during the crux, or you fall off later. So, you do even easier rolls, and rolling with white belts and doing lightweight training is very useful because it increases your skill. Yeah? Because you do that has to be super easy. And then you go to your crux, and you have to even use a bit strength or use better timing when it's difficult. So, but long story short, do a lot of training into the difficult part of the game, into the crux. So, for example, with the leg direct, the hard part is getting the arm across the center line. Keep the arm, fight from there to keep it. Then afterwards, put time into getting it. So again, end game to mid game to early game, learning. That's that. What else? Ever heard of Lev Vygotsky? Ever heard of him? Lev Vygotsky, the zone of proximal development. No? Or near development. It means if you give people, you never heard about? No? I think you did because you know Sonny Brown, right? He made a post where they also reacted on it, I think. Maybe.
Okay, then maybe I know what he's talking about, but the name doesn't take it.
Yeah. So what it is, it's about when you give people learn something, right? And you make it too easy, they lose motivation. You make it way too hard, and then it becomes, I'm not even gonna try. So proximal development means that you put it like a little bit challenging. So just like a little bit over, and then learning starts because it's fun and challenging. It applies to kids, it applies to adults, it applies to everybody in relationship to learning. So you can decide for yourself what is in relationship to the group. And that Lev Vygotsky, he really saved my studies because we did a lot of oral exams in the school before, as exams, and I always everything I replied to, I was also able to refer to that guy. And even if I didn't know my course or the reply, just refer to him, explain that, you really know your, and something we mentioned in the first year, you still know, good. But actually I didn't know the rest, that really helped. Something that you also touched upon, that the internet. You said we get very short attention span of learning, right? And it was very interesting, because people don't want to put time into it anymore because you're using the quick kicks, right? An application of that, what I believe is people often base their game on highlights, especially younger kids until purple belt. The purple belt is not about it, just the amount of years it takes into your development. Purple belts, that area starts to be the hardest to teach, because they want to be free, and it's fine. But what do I mean with basing game on highlights? If you see the Meals or the Mendes bros, would you place them in dynamic speed passing, or would you place them in pressure passing? Are they slow pressure passing or are they dynamic speed passing?
Ooh, what?
The Meals and the Mendes bros. So Rafael Mendes, is he a speed passer or is he a slow meticulous pressure passer? He can do both, that's the point, but
from the highlight you would say speed.
Yes, you would see, so as Francisco also said, if you only base your game on that one moment, you think it's all speed, and I said literally, like, I have one guy in my gym, like a 15-year-old, very talented competitor, but what do you do? All this drill, like pass knee belly, arm bar. I see him doing this in competition. Pass. Before he stabilizes, he also on the other side. He never stabilized. He passed the guys, guard, 15,000 times, never get a single point, only advantages. Lost by one stupid sweep.
Have you ever listened to Christian? There is a blueprint for a successful competition team.
I saw a video on how to teach.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's funny the things that he focused on in the competition class.
Is it opposite of what I'm saying?
He didn't focus on teaching million gap passes or something. He just said they just did rolls, and the rule was pin them 3 seconds on the ground or get your hooks in 3 seconds. That's all they did. Near the end, not really all, but virtually everything they did, and they got very good at it.
My mistake with this student was stabilize, don't do it. How can you lose like that? And getting angry. And he stopped. This is 10 years ago. What should I have done? Play. Get the guy, stabilize, come on, keep him there for 1 minute. And that's my mistakes as a teacher, and we have to learn from that, So, just to give an idea. And last thing, private versus group setting. I think Jiu Jitsu, it's impossible to learn in a group. Not completely. It's ideal to learn one-on-one because you need feeling, right? So private is the best thing, but not everybody has unlimited resources and time, and as a teacher you have to divide your time as well. So you have to simulate the environment of a private class in your gym. So teach people to learn from each other and give each other feedback. Pair advanced people with beginners sometimes. Allow them to explain, allow the blue belt to explain to the white belt, allow the one stripe white belt to explain to the white belt, and because learning happens best when you explain and teach things yourself. So maybe I can conclude on that, because I can keep talking forever, but if there's any specific questions, I will stop it here. No questions? Okay.
We're clear. Right?
Thank you. Clear, it's not clear because it was all over, and everything was chaos with a bit of order. So thank you for listening to my whining for 2 hours.
I wanted to know typical structure.
Typical structure?
Yeah, of a class. So you start, because you said in other class that your class is like cinema. You can come and leave whenever you want. Don't put popcorn on the ground and don't walk on the screen. So if I was a student at your academy and I came to your advanced class, so
I don't really have advanced class. I have fundamental class and I have normal class.
Okay, I come to normal class. Yeah.
So what can you expect depends on what moment we are into the thing we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long do you teach usually something?
1 hour every class and 2 hours. Most classes are 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean you have an overarching theme for like a couple of weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
So how long is that usually?
Well, what I started doing now for one is I started writing down what I teach every week.
Okay.
So to see, and then at the end of the year I want to see if I touch on every subject a little bit. Okay, that's one. And two, the class depends. Often with a game approach, like many classes have been taught here. Like because how I teach my class here is not how I teach in the gym.
Because you cannot do it here.
No, because here I want to give a lot of information and I film it and I put it out so people have something. And I don't think it's always useful to let everybody practice everything here because there's a lot of classes who do that. So and they also have to, because I for one I don't like to. One of my favorite instructors is Chris Houter, and he just talks. So it's personally I like it so much. Chris Payne's the same, and I like it. There's space for everything, right? But so in my gym, what I do, if it's the first time we touch something, I give like a broad perspective, and then go straight to the end game. For example, the back attack. I said, okay, this is control, how I do it, and we start to go from there. Focus on control and maybe on the choke. Second class, I will repeat the same things quickly. Then I say, okay, who was not here, who was here, raise your hands. If it's more or less equal, pair up with someone, explain. Do that. Then so that's how it goes over. But after this, I would have like a small theoretical part, 20 to 30 minutes. Then 30 minutes to 1 hour positional rolling. And this is what I did the last month. Positional rolling is then roll for for example 30 minutes. Start with someone on your back, complete this objective, either the defender or the attacker, switch function, and do the same thing again, switch partners. If it's uneven, great, there's always one free. If it's even, 2 people wait, that's fine. If it takes too long, you can interrupt some people and after 5 minutes and ask them to separate ways as well. Then the fighting itself, I tend now to more put 1 hour or like 30 minutes, let's do 3 rolls. But you only switch when you submit. Okay? This is now it's the vacation, the summer competition is about to come. I will go there now in 2 weeks again. This is the time when we explore things, you know. And when it's going to competition, I might put more rounds and even specific like escape for 1 minute from position. But at least for a beginner, you need unlimited time to explore the thing. You need to know what is the ideal thing. And then add more chaos to it, because it's not because you escape the mount and pushing the guy away that is the good thing to do, but there's still time for pushing, because if I get mounted in competition, for the first 3 seconds, I will escape like a berserk, like
go for it.
Because you cannot allow to stabilize the 3 seconds. Stabilized. Okay, now I can breathe and recalculate.
Do you do warm-ups?
Sorry?
Warm-ups?
Nope.
None at all?
If it's related to the skill itself, because if people cannot do front rolls, then I will add a front roll.
Yeah.
If it's shooting, I might show that. So the warm-up you can see like this. Like I said with the squat, you can say this is a squat, try to do it perfect without any weights, then add weight, and then try to go back to do it perfect without weights when you have the feedback. So you can see that like a warm-up can be, for example, give you like a, this is the most you're going to do today. You're going to focus on okay, so let's say I want to squeeze the back. Then my warm-up can be, let's raise the hips and I never do sit-ups because I think it's a very silly. But I do this, like sit on your butt and then maybe do this. Because for example, every time when people stretch their backs, they tend to push away. So I might make the exercise push forward as you engage your back. So that I do. If I do push-ups in the class, I will sometimes do 10 push-ups. Then it's just about how to do a perfect push-up.
Yeah.
Headstands, those things I do. Cartwheels every once in a while. But I don't tend to do it because I have my wrestling coach and he's a completely different perspective. He always gives flips in the class, cartwheels. Useful.
That's wrestling stuff.
Yeah, and it's cool. I say, man, maybe we should put some time into it. No injection, and we do it and it works.
It's cool. Better than many wrestling classes I know. They warm up with soccer. So.
Yeah, then I don't. Because then,
I think
then I'm always out.
Yeah.
And the flips, I could do them, but I'm a bit more painful in my back, so I don't. But I like it because it's another extreme. I mean, it's different perspective, different extremes.
Yeah, I think I don't go there to learn flips.
No?
I want to learn wrestling. And
But for example, doing headstands really improved my balance, and like my passing is mostly headstands. If I can stand on my head, then also know the moment right before I go to headstand, and because I can know the moment right before headstand, now my tripod is very stable. Because if you do this, it's like on ice, you slip, and if your back is rounded, you flip. So I do like an insane amount of headstands in my life already. Like, yeah. So, yeah.
I can do headstands.
Anything else? Cool, thank you. I hope my camera filmed everything. I will post it. Follow me on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. Bye bye.
It really used to be my